Good morning, my creative friends, and welcome to Painting in Your PJs with Minette. I am Dr. Minette. I am in my PJs, bundled up on this beautiful, chilly morning here in Loveland, Colorado. And I want to say welcome. Thank you for being here, whether you're watching live or whether you're catching the replay. It means the world to me when you stop by and watch my video. If you haven't subscribed yet, I want to encourage you to hit that subscribe button. And also, if you click that little notifications bell whenever I add new content to the channel, you will get notified that there is something new and exciting to watch. And this year we have been focused on creating paper dolls, what I'm calling the Paper Doll Chronicles, using paper dolls as a way to, one, have some fun, engage in creative expression and creative play, but two, I deeply believe that art is such a powerful tool for introspection, for can't talk yet this morning, deep reflection, and a way to look at ourselves through a different lens. It allows us the opportunity to sort of step outside of ourselves, get out of our busy heads, and access our intuitive knowing, which is the theme of this month's playtime, is about connecting to that inner voice. And today we're going to start the process. We won't finish it. It's a little bit more involved doll than we've created so far this year. We're going to create a Wayfinder doll. So this is the one, and what is a Wayfinder? She's the one, or he's the one that shows you, or they are the one, maybe yours is an animal, who knows? But this is that aspect of you that knows what direction to go. It's an opportunity to be your own oracle, to connect to your own inner voice. And I think it's going to be fun to explore. And again, we're going to take a few sessions to work on this particular doll, add to it, allow it to grow. We're going to be using felt and embroidery floss, so lots of stitching ideas and ways to play. So we're going to do something a little bit different, a little more expanded, themes and ideas and playtime. If you're on the Paper Doll Chronicles email list, you got a supply list from me. I will also be sending out some journal prompts to really help us connect to that aspect of us that is our own inner oracle. So let me go ahead and share my camera here, get my messy stuff going out of the way. I have taught so many different things over the last few days that I keep trying to find and make space here on my little live streaming setup that I'm so grateful that Brad made for me. And just make sure that we are up and going. If you are joining me live, welcome. I'd love for you to pop in to the comments into that chat and say hello. Let me know that you're here live. Also, if you are watching the replay, leave me a note in the comments and let me know that you stopped by. These little words have been floating around on my desk all week long, and my life feels very, very full right now. There's a ton going on, and we have our in-person retreat, the Wild Creative Enchantment Retreat, where we're going to be painting with our animal messengers. Lisa, I've been missing you too. I'm so happy that you're here. And we have one spot left in that retreat. So if anyone has a wild hair and would be interested in coming to join me live in Colorado next week, you can email me directly at minette@minetteriordan.com and ask for some details. We're doing a Mother's Day sale. If you're on our email list, we have a really juicy sale coming this weekend. We just got back from a week's vacation, as many of you know. I had a live event last weekend, so life feels full. So when I sat down this weekend to think about what felt really needed in my own life right now, and how can I stay connected to the Paper Doll Chronicles and play. So this is my mantra this week: breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. And I think it's a good one. So I bought this little package of small size felt a number of weeks ago or even months ago, and it's been sitting on my shelves because I had an idea for creating some flat felt paper dolls, paper dolls in quotes. So we're continuing our paper doll exploration, but we're replacing that paper with felt. In the email that I sent out, it had a link to this little set that I found on Amazon. It was super affordable. If the Joann's in your area is still open, I don't know if they're still open or not. Maybe someone else who's watching knows, or Michael's, either one. Felt is very inexpensive to buy and you don't need a lot of it, but I loved these little sheets. And look, somebody gifted me this gorgeous little needle book, which is one of the places I got ideas from. So this feels like a nice wool felt, a little nicer quality felt. And look at this gorgeous needle book. This was gifted to me last year at Ali Manning's retreat where I taught at Books in the Woods, and I love, love, love it. So for today, I'm going to be using some felt. I'm still working on this doll template idea, but again, we're creating a Wayfinder doll, a expression of our inner voice, an expression of that aspect of us that is deeply connected to our intuition. And I had fun doing some hand-drawn patterns and some hand stitching. She definitely needs some arms. She feels really weird without arms. And she definitely needs some hair. And I've got some different fun ideas for hair that I want to create. I don't know, these little scrappy bits feel fun as well. So I'll be showing you a few different really simple stitches for putting her together. And as I said at the beginning, if you're just joining me, this is a project that will go over a couple of weeks, and I will not be here next week as I have my in-person retreat. So you'll have a couple of weeks to get this one started, and then we will continue to work with her in the third week of May. I don't have that date right in front of me. And I also had purchased these fun little fabric leaves. I have boxes full of beads and ribbon. So look around your studio. If you don't have felt, use fabric, use paper to create the doll. The theme will work. I'm going to be using felt, but as always, you use what you have on hand. I also feel like she really wants to have some beads added to her dress for this one, so I will be adding to this one in my own playtime. But today I want to just get us started and get us going. And there's no template for this one because I really want to encourage you to create your own template. So this one had a variety of different colors of felt that for a variety of different skin tones. And because I'm working with these small, I don't know if they're 6 by 6, 5 by 5, they're pretty small. I'm going to do it so that my doll template, I can get two sides of her out of this fabric. And pencil, you aren't going to be able to see my pencil on this one. I just drew with pencil. I'm wondering if I have I might need to find a piece of chalk. So for drawing on the felt, this is a Stabilo Marks All, which will not work. Here's a paint marker that might work. Let's see if this one's still good. I forgot about the drawing piece. All right, so we're going to try this so you guys can see it. So again, the doll can be absolutely any size, shape, dimension, but we are creating flat dolls. And even though they're flat, they're double-sided to give them a little stability and a little dimension as well. And I'm really thinking I want some chalk, and of course I don't have any chalk close. So we're just going to go with the paint and see what happens. So I started with just a simple shape of a head. Actually, I'm going to draw this on paper first. so that you guys can see a little more clearly. Like this was here, I traced that outline of the doll that I created, which I drew directly onto felt. So when we think about drawing that template for the person, we want to keep it really simple. So remember, most heads tend to be on the oval side. Some of us have rounder faces, some of us have longer, more narrow faces. And remember our face drawing proportions. This is probably a great place for us to start before we draw the outline of the shape. You can even do this on paper and create your own pattern. As I'm doing that, I'm like, what's on the other side? Okay, let's go back over here to a page and just go ahead and tear that out. And I'm just going to create my own pattern. I think that's the best idea. Can you tell I'm creating this on the fly? Like I have ideas in my head, but I tend to always work very intuitively. I'm also not a seamstress. I'm not a pattern designer, or I love the word sewist. A lot of people use the word sewist. And for me, learning to create my own patterns for working with fabric is a challenge and a step in a new direction. So again, let's go back to, so I'm going to be mindful that I want this to fit here. So I'm going to just trace this because this, again, I'm working with the size of felt that I have. So you get to determine your size with whatever you have on hand. And I'm going to come back in. And I'm thinking this one, maybe I want her face to be just a little bit rounder. That other face was a little longer and skinnier. And then we're going to remember our face proportions, right? So we're going to divide the face in half this way. We're going to divide it in half this way. This is where our eyes go. And then between here and the chin, halfway is where our nose goes. And then halfway between the nose and the chin is where our mouth goes. Our ears go from the center of our eye to the bottom of our nose. So it felt important to me that my doll had ears. And so there is that basic template. And then our neck, the line of our neck tends to go from either the corner or the center of our eyes. So we can kind of do some dotted lines. And we can get that line of the neck. And when I was making this first template, that neck ended up, her neck ended up being maybe a little longer than I wanted to be, and it's fine, you know, and some people have very long, slender necks. Other people have shorter necks. So you can't get this wrong, right? And then we're just going to come in and give it some shoulders. I haven't figured what I'm going to do with the arms, but for this first part, we're just going to create the torso and the face. That's all we need to do to start. And I'm going to take my scissors. Let me get some bigger scissors here. And we're going to cut the face out. Notice I didn't draw any detail in the face yet. We will do that directly onto our felt. And that will become our stitching guide for stitching the face. So I think the other thing I did when I drew this first that really helped me to make that really symmetrical shape. I'm trying to actually remember what it is that I did when I started. This paper is thick. So I'm actually going to fold it in half so that I truly get that nice symmetrical shape to the body. That means my, excuse me, ears will be the same shape. My head will be symmetrical. So it's a quick, easy way to create a symmetrical pattern. And that ear's a little more shapy than I want it to be. So there I have a very, very simple template, and you can see when I fold it in half, I thought my lines were pretty even, but this one was a little shorter on the side on that shoulder. So now I have this more symmetrical shape. And it's interesting as I'm looking at it, these shoulders feel very, very square, and there's something a little masculine about them. And I want my Wayfinder to feel a little more feminine. And I will do that in a variety of ways with the face, but somehow those shoulders feel like they don't want to be up around the ears. So that feels like a little more subtle shape. So you can play with your shape, but this is a great way to just simply get started with your doll. And then I'm cutting off, that is the length of my paper, right? So see how this is just going to fit on here. It actually went a little bit over, and it's all good. So I don't even have to cut the bottom. I love using up as much of the piece of fabric as I can. And then I'm just going to take my pencil and trace around that face. Make sure it's showing. Might even want a fabric pen. So if you have a fabric pencil, which of course I do somewhere else in the studio, a ballpoint pen will work. You're going to cut these lines off, but this felt is very dark, so a white pencil might be better for tracing. All right, so you can just see that outline there. So again, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut both pieces of felt at the same time, so I have two even pieces. And once it's stitched, none of the pencil lines will show, so don't worry if you're getting those pencil lines. I have been really, really loving working with texture lately, with slow stitching, with adding dimension even to my paintings. But something about the fabric and the stitching and the tactile nature of that I've been finding really, really soulful, soothing, a very mindful practice. It's really helpful when my days are busy and then I spend a couple of hours in the evening stitching. Been working on learning more stitches. So you can see the ears are a little wonky. They didn't come out exactly the same on either side. So, just trim them up, and remember, no faces are perfectly symmetrical, so don't worry about it if it doesn't come out exactly the same. By the time she's all, or he, it is going to be, they will be all put together, it's going to be not noticeable, just like the rest of us, right? If you look at me, my eyes are not the same size, my ears are not the same size. All right, close enough. Close enough. I will save these little scrappy bits in case I need them for something else. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw the face onto the doll, and then we're going to add some stitching. And this for me is that fun part. Okay, I'm being fussy and a little too precious here, and I know I said, don't worry about it, it'll all be perfect. Okay, so I'm going to use this white marker so that we can see the shape of the face. So I'm looking here again at this. I can even line it up here so I can see. So remember, kind of the center of your eye is at the top of your ear. I'm actually going to mark the nose first. That just helps me kind of see where the center is. And I'm not going to worry too much about the white paint marker. I want you to be able to see it, and I will cover it up with my stitching. So I'm just drawing some really simple shaped eyes on here. I'm not in any way trying to make this a realistic face. It's clear it's a face, and that's all it needs to be, right? So we're just going to keep this super, super simple. So I'm going to come in and give her a mouth that ended up being a little close to the nose. That chin is way down here. So I'm just going to redraw that again, not too worried. There we go, that's better. I'm going to give her some eyebrows. And I love adding just a little bit of color to the cheeks, so I'm just going to draw 2 little circles for the cheeks. It looks very clown-like at the moment. And then when I start to think about what symbols would represent this idea of an inner oracle, of a wayfinder. So this one, what came to me was a spiral shape. So I stitched a spiral on her forehead. For some reason, I'm feeling for this one that I want a diamond shape on the forehead. So completely different symbol. And then maybe here on the throat, at kind of that level of the throat chakra, I'm going to add in that spiral shape. And even though I'm going to add clothes and a dress to her, right? So you can see I still have one more side to work on here. I'm loving where this is going, and it still feels like there's lots to do here, but it still feels like I want to have that, like, call out her heart to remind me that when I am connected to my heart, I am connected to the voice of my intuition. So think about any symbols that you might want to add to your doll that represent that idea of connecting to your inner voice, to being your own inner oracle. So the next step in our doll making today, and we're going to talk more about the meaning of this doll probably the next session in a couple of weeks. I'm going to send some journal prompts out through the email list. So if you're not on the email list for the Paper Doll Chronicles, I recommend you do subscribe to that. I do send out periodic templates and updates and the schedule and lots of juicy information, and I'm going to be sending out the prompts to this. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to separate out the 2 parts, and I'm going to stitch the face. I don't want to stitch them together, so I really want to see if we can light that up a little more. Oh, that's way better. So I simply want to stitch the face and the symbols, and we're going to basically just use a really simple straight stitch for this part, not a lot of fancy stitching at this stage. So I have just an inexpensive box of embroidery floss, and I'm going to start working on the face. I'm thinking yellow for that diamond shape. And is that going to be, I think that's a dark enough brown for the eyebrows and her nose. She's telling me, as I'm deeply listening here to what she has to say, that she wants some purple. So I'm noticing what colors, as we allow ourselves to do this kind of creative play in working specifically with doll shapes. If you're quiet and you lean in, they will tell you what they want. So I invite you to soften into your own inner knowing, connect to that aspect of you that is the Wayfinder, that is your own inner Muse of Purpose and Calling, and ask it what colors. Okay, I'm feeling some green here. So green is actually the color of the heart chakra. Purple is that color, but she's like, nope, this is what I want. Okay, and maybe a little bit of this blue for the spiral. Okay, I don't know where all these colors are going. I'm definitely going to want a little bit of white for her eyes, and maybe she is going to have some beautiful dark green eyes. So I've got a variety of different colors here to play with and explore. I've got just an embroidery needle here. It has, I know it's really hard to see that, but it has a pretty big head on it. If I bring it closer, it's just going to get blurry. But I wanted something that was easy to thread so that I wasn't struggling too much to thread my needle. And I don't have, do I? Oh, I do have a needle threader here, so I might use that to speed the process up this morning. And I'm going to be working with 2 strands of the embroidery floss. So if you are a little bit newer to embroidery, there are many great videos online. I don't need very much of this. And one of the things that I've really been paying attention to, I used to be lazy and not want to separate out the thread. So I would just use all 6 strands of embroidery floss, which impacts the look of the design. So I'm learning to be more patient, especially when it comes to connecting to my intuition and inner voice. It requires quiet and deep reflection. So I'm just going to patiently unravel that embroidery floss. And while I love the storage on these little cards, the floss is definitely comes out with that rounded shape. So I've had this box forever. All right, so I'm going to set that one aside. I have my 2 strands of embroidery floss. Bear with me for a second. I am going to find my needle threader, which I saw in here somewhere yesterday. In one of these mini bags in my, there it is. Okay, I just saw it. Bear with me. Should have grabbed this ahead of time. Was it in this one? All right, I'm being silly here. Oh, there it is. It fell out of the bag on the lid. So I have fallen in love with Stitched Stories on Instagram. I bought a couple of her kits and some wonderful little scissors, but it also, one of the things she sells, and I'm sure they're available other places as well, but I really love Stitch Stories, was this really fabulous needle threader that has this sort of flat tip, and what I loved about it is that it's much sturdier than traditional needle threaders, which I tend to be really good at breaking. Don't ask me how. All right. See if we can just get this going a little faster. I spent a lot of evenings stitching this week and being frustrated, and at the same time, because my needle threader was not where I was sitting, and like, why get up and get it? I can thread this needle. So don't be frustrated. Use tools that will help you. So the way that I put a knot in the thread is different than other people do it. I wind it around my index finger. This is how my mom taught me to do it when I was a kid. I roll that off and then just pull that into a knot, right? Just pull that into a knot. So let's see if we can zoom in just a little bit more without losing our focus. So I'm going to start on her eyebrows here. I'm going to start from the back. I'm going to come to the front. So as I said, I still consider myself fairly novice at embroidery and stitching. So I'm going to explain to the best of my ability and share my process of learning these stitches. So for this one, I'm not even going to remember the names of all the stitches. Let's see if I have names of stitches here. I love the way this stitch looks, and it's called an outline stitch. I would have called it a back stitch, but that one's a little bit different. So I'm going to go down through my felt, and then I'm going to come back again towards my knot about halfway between where I'm going down and where I'm coming back up again. And this is going to give us a little texture here, like the texture of the eyebrow. And again, I know on this dark thread it's a little hard to see, so you can always just follow what I'm saying. So I'm going down from front to back, coming back up about halfway between where I went down and the previous stitch. And then I just need one more stitch, so that only took 3 little stitches there to create that eyebrow. Some of this will be easier to see when we get to the brighter colors. So I'm just going to get this one done quickly. So I just came up at the corner of the eyebrow, down about 1/3 of the way across, back up again. And again, this is a great stitch for doing things on a curve. And here I'm using it for that outline. Let's see, am I as focused? Okay, here we go. So bear with me. I'm going to refocus the camera for a little bit and see if we can get that just a little bit sharper. Okay, there we go. So hopefully you can see that. See if we can get those lights in. And then I am going to go ahead and just run that under one of the stitches on the back. The curly thread is kind of a pain. I'm going to put my needle through that loop and pull it tight. And many of you may have much more experience than I do with embroidery and stitching, but I'm here for the fun. See, that just got all knotted up. I'm here for the fun, not the perfection. I'm not worried about having the back neat at all because it's going to get covered up. I'm going to knot that 2 strands of embroidery floss one more time. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to use this to outline the nose. And because I used paint marker, I'm still going to be able to see some of those lines or the white paint underneath, and I'm just not gonna worry about it. Okay, that one didn't quite land where I wanted it to. And I'm going to do just a little second stitch underneath this one just to give a little more weight to that nose. And there we have a very, very simple nose. And I may, after class, redraw the face in pencil on this one because I'm not going to love that white paint showing through. And so I will probably redo this one over here and just stitch this one to the inside of the face. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pull that needle under the stitches, pull that thread through that loop. With felt, one of the things I noticed about stitching on felt, it is a little finicky. If you pull it too tight, it does bunch the fabric up. So you want to be a little bit mindful, right, of how tight you pull those knots at the end. So next I'm going to do this diamond up here on her face. And it looks like here's some yellow that's a leftover piece in 2 strands. So I'm keeping all my scrappy bits because they look so fun and pretty, and they'll end up getting used for something. Get my needle threader. I definitely need to go get my eyes checked. So I have noticed that it's getting harder to see some of this up really close stuff. Okay, I'm even struggling with the needle threader today. It's all good. I think the other thing that I love about the working with embroidery is it's a lesson in patience for me. As someone who likes to move fast, draw fast, create quickly without too much thought, the practice of embroidery or slow stitching or mindful stitching really forces me to slow down. So for this diamond, I am going to use a satin stitch. And I'm going to start at the bottom of the diamond, and I'm going to go up to the top of that diamond. And then I am going to just take my time, follow those lines. And those stitches, it's just a straight stitch, and those stitches are super close together. So a satin stitch is what we use to fill in some bigger spaces. On the feather here, that's what I used to create that feather shape, was a satin stitch. And I was very pleased with how the feather turned out. And as I think about this idea of creating that Wayfinder doll, that connecting to my inner voice, my inner intuition, really seeing myself as my own oracle, I think about that third eye space. It's one of the chakras or energy centers, of which we have many in our body. It's a beautiful practice in learning to connect to the different energies within us. We aren't going to talk too much about that, but if you're not familiar with the chakras, it's definitely a fun rabbit hole to explore. Again, I'm not trying to make this a perfect diamond shape. But just to capture the idea of that connecting to my higher self might be another way to put this. And with this doll, a little bit differently than we've done with some of the other ones, we'll be doing more journaling and dialoguing with this doll in the coming weeks, digging even more into that theme of what is a Wayfinder doll, what is the message she has for us, what is it that she's here to share. So again, I'm just looping underneath that. Do 2 on that one, just really tighten that up, trim it off. The back looks really messy. Don't care, it's all going to be covered up. All right, so we're making progress here. And I think I'm going to do the eyes the same way I did the other ones. I'm actually going to do the top of her eyelids with that same dark brown again. I could have done that when I had it threaded. Let's see if we can just get that through there this morning. All right, needle threader. How's everybody doing this morning? I'd love if you're here joining me live, stop by and say hello this morning. Okay, I am hilarious. I threaded the needle threader. I can't talk and thread a needle at the same time, apparently. So I'll be quiet while I figure this out. And if you're newer to my show, welcome. Please do hit that subscribe button. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you like what I'm sharing here. But also, one of the things you'll discover is that I am here to play and to experiment. This is not necessarily a step-by-step do what I do. This is let me show you what I would do, offer up a prompt, and then encourage you to take this practice and completely make it your own. So for this one, I'm going to do that same outline stitch to kind of capture the curve of the eye. It's a little challenging to work in these tiny little spaces. And remember, we're not going for perfection. So I'm just going to outline. Actually, this one, it has big eyes. So I may, do I want to? I'm thinking as I go. So I'm going to add some little eyelashes here to the corner. So I'm just going to come up in that corner and add a couple of little straight lines along the top of that lid. I'm not going to do all the way across the top, but you could. It would just create a different look and feel. But I'm just going to give her a couple of little eyelashes just along the top of that lid. And just start to give her some character. Start to give her some character. And then I'm just going to pop over to that other eye and do exactly the same thing. 3 little outline stitches across the top of the eye. And 3 little eyelashes. And again, basically all we're doing is just straight stitches here, right? Just in and out stitches. No perfection. Definitely maybe some poking of the self I'm really good at that part of poking myself with the needle. Anyone else? Put that one out that direction there. So our eyes are starting to come to life here with this detail. And they often say that eyes are the mirror to the soul. When you connect with people, you can often tell how they're truly feeling, if they're truly listening by looking at their eyes. Okay, beautiful. Let's get some of this deep green here. I think this was some random, must have been multiple different pieces left from something because I have a lot of ends here that I've wrapped around this card. Interesting. Oh, maybe she's going to have green hair too. How fun would that be? So this is, remember, this is your doll that you get to create any way that feels magical to you. All right, this is a bit of a tangled mess. I'm looking for the longest one here. And for the eyes, again, I'm going to be using that same satin stitch that I used up here on the diamond on her forehead. And I'm going to use 3 strands of floss because I want her eyes to be a little bit thicker. So I'm just going to divide that embroidery floss in half. In each thing of floss, there are 6 strands of thread. And the more strands of embroidery floss you use, the thicker or the bigger eye of the needle that you need, right? So then you start to need almost like a needle point needle, which is usually not sharp enough for embroidery, but you need something that has a bigger eye in order to hold that embroidery floss. All right, so I am going to start just above this little white line, which will represent kind of the white of the eye. Again, I'm going to start right in the middle of the eye with that satin stitch, which is just a series of little straight stitches laid side by side, side by side. Again, it's just that little bit finicky. Just taking your time. I find when I do this kind of work, this is like my Zentangle practice, that I often will hold my breath or hold my hands too tightly and get cramps in my hands. So just making sure to every once in a while to pause, to catch your breath, to relax. There's one eye. And actually this one, I might go out. No, I'm gonna have all of that be white. So I'm just gonna come right back over here. Remember, I'm not worrying about the back. It's all gonna be covered up. So I'm gonna come right back in the center of the eye with that little satin stitch. And it's probably hard to tell on the camera, but just that one extra thread of embroidery floss using those 3 strands gives me a different look to the embroidery. So you can play with using different strands. And even as I stitch, I find myself getting quieter, going inward. Don't be afraid to go over the top of the stitches again. I'm wanting this eye maybe to be a little fuller, rounder on the bottom. Because I'm using inexpensive, oh, my thing just did something weird. All right, there it is. Hey, Lorraine, welcome. I so appreciated your email this week. Thank you, friend. But just find myself with each stitch getting a little quieter, a little softer, just connecting ever more deeply to myself. So again, we're just going to run that under some of those stitches, pull the needle through the loop, pull it tight but not too tight. I'm going to do that one more time if I don't lose my thread there. And I am a very messy stitcher, and I don't care, right? So I'm here to really model embracing imperfection for each of you. Let's see, I've got a little bit of white here. Always trying not to lose my needle on my table. Again, going back to those 2 strands of floss. Aha, I got that one without having to use the needle threader. Knot that thread. Just give it a little tug to straighten out a little bit. And then I'm going to come and I'm just going to continue with that outline stitch, which we talked about, to create the white of the eye. And I'm just going to go in a circle around the edge of the iris of the eye here. Turn it this way. And remember, I'm left-handed, so for those of you that are right-handed, everything might feel backwards for you. So I'm going to go down into my felt, and everything's going to knot up on me. And I think I'm going to do a back stitch on this one. So I went down. I'm going to come up about the same length over here around, and then I'm going to go back in where that other stitch was. And then again, I'm going to come up through the bottom and go back towards that first stitch. This is another nice way to do both straight and curved lines. We have a little bit more control over the shape, and also what I have found in doing this, working in curved spaces, is smaller stitches will give you more of a neater curved effect. And I also found with the felts is that the stitches almost disappear a little bit. It's been kind of interesting where I think I'm making a bigger stitch than I am, and I think that's just the nature of the felt. Oh, we got a knot on the back. See, I told you I was a messy stitcher. And it's an example today, so I'm just not worried, and nobody's going to see that. It's all going to be stitched together inside the other doll. Oh, this white is just giving me grief. So this was a longer piece, so if you notice that you're really struggling with knots in your floss, then I encourage you to work with shorter pieces of the embroidery floss. And this is a very inexpensive floss as well. Okay, it is just going to be a mess, and I am going to fix it after the call because I have that weird little knot in there. And look at that mess. So I'm probably going to take all of this out again and redo it, but for the moment I'm just going to ignore it and finish up the eyes. And I want to show you, before we're done today, how to stitch the two pieces together as well. So this will definitely be a work in progress. But you can see how by adding that white outline, the face totally. Oh, awesome, Lorraine. Yes, I had mentioned earlier that I got some beautiful kits and awesome, this fabulous needle threader from Stitched Stories. I really love her kits. See, I think I have one of her kits here, so highly recommend Stitched Stories. But one of the things I bought from her, and thank you for reminding me because I forgot that I had it, was a little round thing of wax. And if you run the embroidery floss, a candle works great, or an actual wax candle like beeswax is great. So I have a little wheel of beeswax that I run the embroidery floss through. But her kits are so beautiful. I can't wait to do this one. And her stitching guides are fantastic. You can find her on Instagram or on the internet with Stitched Stories. So I will fix up this messy bit at another time and complete the face at another time. But I want to show you how I would put the two of these together. And it'll be 2 weeks from today before I am live again. So if you want to stitch along with me, I'm going to encourage you to get this part of your doll complete. And next time we are going to work on creating the dress or outfit or clothing with all the sacred symbols of our Wayfinder doll. And actually, so I still want to finish up this face. So I'm using the same stitch here as I did on the face there. So I will show you it's an applique stitch is what I would call this stitch. And I will show it on this one because I want to finish up the dress anyway. So you can see that I've just created the torso here, right? And so this is the part for next week that it would be great to have you complete or over the next couple of weeks if you want to work along with me. And again, remember you can do your own thing any time. So I'm going to show you how I stitch the two pieces together. So why two pieces of felt, you may be asking? Just to give it a little more character and dimension. We could also simply create a flat doll with single pieces, and felt is fun. It's so fun for kids. It's one of those things that is used a lot. I think this is the one's not long enough. At the right, making sure it's the right yellow. And when they're flat, they stick together. So it can be really fun to create a whole book of felt with different doll parts and clothes. I found some absolutely wonderful templates for what are called quiet books for kids on Etsy, but I think would be fun for me as well. Like there were some forest fairy books. So I will finish up her face a little bit later, and let me show you how we're going to stitch those two pieces together just to give it a little dimension using an applique stitch. So again, I am still using that 2 strands of embroidery floss. And Lorraine, thank you for reminding me about the wax trick. When I don't know, I guess I was in my late 20s. I went to a baby shower for a friend. Actually, I went to 2 different baby showers within a short period of time where a group of women came together to make a baby quilt. And I had never done any kind of really quilting. My mom tried to teach me how to sew. I was never good at it. I did love needlepoint. I did a lot of needlepoint. But the one thing that I loved about quilting was learning how to do applique and the applique stitch. And so that was my favorite part of that experience. So I have used what I had on hand. I have a really long needle here and one straight pin. You will want to pin the 2 pieces of felt together. So here on this one, do I have any? You would simply make sure that you get your 2 pieces of the doll lined up as neatly as possible and just stick a few straight pins in there to hold it together. So I have boxes full of straight pins, but none of them here, but you get the idea. And if you don't have straight pins, needles work amazingly well for pinning the pieces together. And you can stitch across the bottom or leave it open. You could 100% come in and add a little stuffing to the inside of your felt doll torso here to give it a little dimension. I might try that and see what I think, but I'm kind of enjoying the flat part. So once you have this pinned together, you're going to come along and use this applique stitch. I'm going to start at the bottom down here. So I'm going to put my needle through the top piece of felt only to begin with. So now my needle is on the top of the felt. I'm going to go around to the back. I'm going to come up about 1/8 of an inch. In this case, to the left, depending on the direction you're going, it might be the right, from that first stitch. And I'm going to put my needle underneath this loop and pull it through. Oops, I missed the stitch. Oh, I came up on the wrong side of no problem. Okay. So this first applique stitch, you always end up with kind of a funny little triangle shape. So I'm going to come up 1/8 to 1/4 inch, in this case to the left of my stitch. I'm going to put my thread through the needle and pull it together. And you'll see as we go along, you end up with this I love the way it looks, but it's a really nice way to put things together. So you're putting that thread underneath that loop, pulling it tight, aiming for approximately the same width of the stitches. But again, no perfectionism. Nobody's coming along with a ruler to measure your stitches. Again, I'm working with that shorter piece of thread, so I'm not having issues with my thread knotting. And actually with this stitch, I don't know that I've ever had issues with it knotting. I think just because of the shape of the stitch. So you can see what a beautiful line this creates down the edge. And it's also very, very sturdy, right? So if you wanted to stuff this, you could. It's just a beautiful way to stitch these two pieces together, and it also creates a flat edge. So if I were to simply do a straight stitch on this, I'd have to do it inside out, right? Turn it around, which isn't as easy with these thicker pieces of felt. So the applique stitch is that really nice piece with the felt, or nice stitch with the felt that works to close up these two pieces together. And once you get the hang of it, it goes pretty quickly as well. And sometimes you gotta make sure that you pull forward on that stitch. You can see some of the stitches, you can see more on top of the fabric than the other. Trying to make this one go a little more quickly. And I'm just going to go to the top of this shoulder of the dress here, making sure to leave the neck open. Don't stitch your neck because that's where we are going to add our torso. So to finish this one off, I'm going to come around to the back, just go under those stitches. And this one I'm actually going to take my needle inside and just bring it out a little farther down, right? So it's anchored on the inside and then we don't have any little tiny pieces showing. So there is our lovely applique stitch. Trim that one off as well. So eventually we'll be making the dress, but again, if you want to work along with me, so I will be back live 2 weeks from today. I have a beautiful in-person retreat next week. So I will not be live next Thursday, but you can see where you're going. So I will have both of my sample faces complete for next time. And in part 2 of this video, we will be working on creating her dress and continuing to add symbols and color and texture and to have a juicy conversation with our Wayfinder doll. So again, this is just part 1. Glad to be live with all of you today. Excited about this project and connecting with this aspect of ourselves that is our inner voice, our inner oracle, or our inner intuition, and to create a lovely representation of that aspect of ourself. Thank you for joining me live. Thank you for catching the replay. Leave me a comment. Please do click the like button. It really helps other people know this is a video worth watching. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll see you guys all soon. Have a great rest of your day.